Hey guys, in this short video, let's understand how to use the variables or the secrets in the Postman. So let's directly get into the demo. I'm in my Postman application. I'll create a collection first. Name it as demo and I'll add one API request. So name it as login. So let's try to use the sample API endpoint which may not be valid, but in our actual real time we will be using the working API endpoint. So think that like this is my common domain that has several API paths, something like login, and think that like we have another path profile, we have another retrieve, something like that. So but in all the API calls the path would be same. So let me save it and I will create one more API call with the same endpoint with a different path as I mentioned. Think that like it has one more endpoint which is profile. What happened to it? API.com profile. Okay, so I will save it. Demo. I'll name it as profile. Something weird. Okay, so I'll create one more API call and I will save it, which will be retrieve. Say for example, and it should be in the same collection, but I'll change this path as retrieve. Now as you can see, I have created these three API endpoints. In these three API calls the endpoint is same like api.test.com, api.test.com, api.test.com. So as a developer we should not be using these hard coded values everywhere. uh, so to parameterize it or to variabilize this, we should be using the collection level variable, or if this API endpoint is being used everywhere in the other collections, we can even create global variable as well. So let's try to see how we can create a variable. So I'll select this and it is even suggesting like its collection level scope for creating a variable, and they are suggesting a name base URL. So it's in the updated version that we are getting pop-up, but in the earlier versions of Postman we were not getting. So we generally like what we do, we select it and right click on it and we get an option to create the variable. So however it is suggesting now. Let me discuss about the scope of the variable. So in Postman there are three types of variables. One is collection level, the other one is at global level, the other one is at environment level. So if we make this variable at the collection level, what happens is let's create the collection level variable and we'll see. Okay, so as you can see, base URL, the actual primary endpoint is replaced with the variable base URL. Now if we create the collection level variable like the way we created here, uh, the variable can be accessible within the collection called demo. But as I mentioned, there are other type of variables like global variables, globals. So if we add a global variable similar to the way we added in the collection level, the variables can be accessible across all the collections. And when it comes to the environment variable, we have not created any environment yet, right? So we are in the default environment. It technically like does not have any environment, but there are few cases in our real time like we have dev environment, QA, UAT and prod environments. So if we want to segregate the variables across the environment levels, we can even use these environment variables. For example, let's try to create one environment variable and then we'll see the global variable. So if I create the environment variable, I can even create an environment from here. uh, Looking at here is select environment, or I can even create environment from here, or I can even create environment from environment section as well, create an environment. So anything works fine. So let's try to create an environment from here for now. Okay, I'll name it as dev environment, and in this dev environment I can set the variable. Say for example, I'll go here and I'll copy this one for now. I will give this is at the collection level, right? So we have not saved, that's the reason like it's showing in red. And if I save it within the demo collection, it will be populated. As you can see, like this value is being retrieved. But as I mentioned, like we can see the environment variable. So I will delete it and I'll create this one again. So I will give it as some different domain, api.temp.com for now. Okay, so let's try to create the environment variable by clicking on this one, set variable, and for example, env base URL is what I'm giving, or we can even follow camel case env base URL. Okay, so if we select the scope, this is populating now. Like it was earlier, it was grayed out. We weren't able to select the environment. Since we have created the environment, now we are in the dev environment, as you can see over here. So it is populating. So we can select the environment and set variable. So the API call that we save will be in the dev environment. So this API call can access the variables from the collection level as well as at the variable level if we save it in the same collection. Similar to that, like we have another variable type, global. So if we create the variable at the global level, that variables can be accessible across the all collections. Now there is one more type called secrets, vault I would say. So to store any kind of sensitive information like username, passwords, we can use the vault type. So let's try to create one more API call https demo.api.com for now slash login path I'm giving, and let's select this one and try to create the vault. So select variable and set a new variable, scope will be vault, and I will name it as secret base URL is what I'm giving, so that people think that okay, it's sensitive information. Now if I go back here, the variables that are being used, so you see this is hidden one. So whatever the data that we store in the vault is considered as sensitive information and which is hidden by default. And if you want to take a look at it, we can click on it and it will be visible. Similar to that, like if we go to this collection, this API request, and look at the variables, this is visible by default. It's an environment variable. So that is how the variables and secrets can be used in the Postman. That's all for this demo. Thanks for watching.